Joining me now is former U.S. Ambassador to Israel, Dan Shapiro. Thanks so much for being with us, sir. I want to ask about this Security Council meeting about to get underway. Do you believe it will produce any kind of meaningful action on the Hezbollah threat? And what exactly would meaningful action look like exactly?
It's always hard to depend on the United Nations to take firm action against Hezbollah. Of course, for the first time, we saw UNIFIL, the UN peacekeeping force that's in southern Lebanon, identify Hezbollah as, or identify these, I should say, these attack tunnels as a serious threat that Israel had a right to respond to. It was less clear that Hezbollah was responsible for them. So it would be important to get as many countries as possible on record, even if you couldn't get a majority in the United Nations, labeling Hezbollah as the responsible actor who has carried out this violation of Israeli sovereignty, and as the Prime Minister accurately said, put civilians at risk, and legitimize Israel's response to try to eliminate those tunnels. But whether or not the United Nations makes that case, Israel has more than the legitimacy it needs to carry out this operation.
If there is going to be military action inside Lebanon, if that was necessary, how important is this meeting today, this discussion, the expose, the evidence that will be presented about the violation of the UN Resolution 1701 and about Hezbollah's activities? Discuss the significance of bringing it all out today.
Well, it's critically important that the world understand that Hezbollah is an aggressor here. Hezbollah, of course, has stockpiled over 100,000 rockets and missiles that can reach pretty much every part of Israel. And that's for no defensive purpose. That's so that at a time of their choosing or at their sponsor Iran's choosing, they can launch those rockets, missiles against Israeli civilian populations and critical infrastructure targets. But they haven't even waited until the next war, which of course would be triggered by any number of scenarios, to begin a kind of attack and a kind of violation of Israeli sovereignty, laying out for the public and for the world opinion leaders to see that these tunnels represent a real-time violation of Israeli sovereignty by a terrorist organization backed by Iran with the intention of using them during times of conflict or to carry out terrorist attacks.
There are some concrete steps that could be taken in light of this discussion. There could be an expanded mission, expanded presence of the UN on the ground. There could be sanctions. There could be the designation of Hezbollah by the UN as a terrorist organization. Do you think any of these concrete steps will actually come out of today's meeting?
Again, I'm skeptical, and one always has to be cautious about expecting positive and forward-leaning action by the United Nations when it comes to these matters. But certainly expanding UNIFIL's mission to allow it to do the inspections in homes and in villages and in areas that Hezbollah has exploited civilian communities to build weapons, to deploy rockets, and now to dig tunnels under the Israeli border would be very, very valuable and would obviously assist Israel in exposing and destroying these tunnels before they're used for attack.